I would have been stupid to say no because this is what I've been wanting to do. So now I'm coaching up there and helping Nick record content and editing. I help with the podcast, so they keep me pretty busy up there.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. Yeah. And what's it like to work with Rip?
It's interesting. I've been around him for at least 6-7 years, so you get used to him pretty quick. But it's never a dull day with him. You just go in there and bring up politics, and he starts yelling at everybody. So.
Yeah, that's the way. And Alex, do you want to tell people a bit about yourself who might not have seen you or heard of you before?
Yeah, probably a lot of you. All one. My name is Alex. I'm a starting strength coach. I just got my SSC in December. And I am hosting out of Virginia Beach, so East Coast, United States. I've got my introduction to coaching from grappling. So, I started doing judo, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, all that stuff in college after not really doing any sports in high school. And I kind of just got shoved into a coaching position because I was, better than most grapplers are at talking to people. If you ever talk to a lot of martial artists, you'll see that pretty quickly. So I started coaching people. I coached for the Pit Judo team for 4 years. Yeah, 4 years there. I went into the corporate world for commercial property management, and then realized the corporate world definitely wasn't for me. And then I found out, found starting strength kind of at the tail end of college, and then kind of really threw myself the whole process, and just got my SSC. So.
Oh, nice, good one. You don't have the cauliflower ears that most grapplers have. How did you avoid that?
Most of them just don't ice their ears. It's super simple. Your ears turn black, you just ice them, and then the problem goes away.
So
but most people just kind of
ice your balls. Is that how it works?
Yeah. I decided that I wanted to be able to use headphones in my ears, so I made that choice. I'm just gonna ice it. But yeah, a lot of people just get too annoyed and they just don't do it. But yeah.
Okay. All right. And I'm the developer of the Starting Strength app and Strength Club. And that's been going Starting Strength's been going for about 4 years now. So that's how I was sort of introduced to it. I just sent Rip an email one day and said, "Hey, I noticed you don't have an app. Do you want to make one?" And he said, I think his email reply was just call me with his cell phone number.
That's Rip.
That was my introduction to Rip. I think we ended up doing a Skype video. It was not a video call, just an audio call. It was me and Rip and Steph. And I think my Skype profile photo at that time had been taken a long time ago when I was fat and hairy. And literally the first thing he said to me when we jumped on that call it wasn't like, "Hey Mick, how are you? Nice to meet you." It was, "You are one ugly motherfucker." That was literally the first thing.
I'm working with Rip. You need to have a thick skin because he doesn't hold anything back. He's not worried about your feelings. But I prefer that. I prefer that kind of a work atmosphere.
Yeah, I do as well.
Mick, was that back when I just saw the picture that you sent out with the email? Was that when you had the long hair?
Yeah, I had the long hair, but I was also like skinny fat as well. And I think I had some weird photo on Skype where I was making a kind of strange face and. Fair enough, fair play.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think I appreciate that about Rip as well. Like he doesn't, doing business with him, you don't, you do business with a lot of people over the years, and there's a lot of people who just bullshit around the facts and don't say what they feel. But with Rip, he will just say what he feels and he's straight to the point, and I like that because it's just where you stand with him. So it's been a good working relationship. Let's kick off this Q&A. I think we'll just run through the list we've got here. So the first question is from Justin E, and he asks, I've had a lot of improvement using Starting Strength over the past year, but I can't clean worth a shit. I've watched a lot of mobility training, power, clean, stretching videos, whatever that is, and they're all different. Just wondering if there is an official Starting Strength recommended mobility training for being able to clean an unloaded bar and have it rest on my delts while still being able to keep my fingers wrapped around the bar.
Rusty, do you want to take this one off?
Yeah. So flexibility is obviously going to be an issue if you're having a hard time racking the bar. The first thing I would do if I was coaching him, I would see how far out his hands are. Because if he's trying to keep his hands in real tight like this, it's going to be real hard to rack that bar. And that's a common mistake I see a lot of people do. If you get your hand out, that should help a little bit. Now, you can do stretches with a long stick, put it against a rack, and kind of force your elbows up into it. But the main thing that's going to get that flexibility is to just keep doing it and working on it. It's just like in a squat, just like anything else we do. You have to keep yourself doing the motions over and over again, and that flexibility will build up. He left out a lot of pertinent things, like what's his deadlift look like? Is his mobility on his press good? All that stuff is, kind of pertains to that question. But the first thing I would do is see how in his hands are, or how far out they are. Alex, you got anything?
Definitely a few things to add. So it's going to depend. So if you're like a big jacked guy, it's very possible you're not going to be able to, regardless of your grip width, get it into a solid front rack, with an unloaded bar. I'm not that big of a guy, but I've pretty beat up shoulders. So for me, I can get into a good front rack once it's past maybe 155, 165, when there's enough weight to physically press it down. So if you watch a lot of Olympic lifters, they'll have 100 kilos on the bar, and their floating front rack will still be 3 inches off the chest. So you really got to see an unloaded bar. You'll maybe have to change your expectations. It's kind of akin to, people will see like just a squat with just the empty bar, and they'll say, oh, it's forward to midfoot. This doesn't make any sense. In the situation, it's a little different. So
yeah. Well,
you guys hearing some feedback?
Yeah, sorry, that was me. I was just testing the actual stream. It seems like it's working. So
I was just making sure that wasn't me. Okay.
It's all working. Yep, so that's all sorted now.
I was going to bring that up too, though. An empty bar looks completely different than whenever you start stacking on that weight. And let's just say that his shoulder won't get in that position no matter what. You can always just clean into a press. A lot of the old school Olympic lifters used to do that. They would clean straight into a press, and then they would do their Olympic press on it. So, that's always an option too.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be able to clean a crap load of weight doing that, but at least you're cleaning.
Yeah. And then the next thing you can do is just the forbidden power snatch, of which, not too many people touch anymore. So, yeah.
Whenever in any of the seminars that we do, if there's somebody who physically cannot get into that position, Rip has shown the power snatch before.
Mm-hmm.
That is an option.
Yeah.
Does he actually do it himself, or does he get you to do the power? All right. So the next question is from Bleachy from Reddit, who asks, as a 16-year-old who is skinny fat, 5'10", 140 pounds, what do you suggest I do for a program? It should be a pretty quick answer.
I feel like you'd probably be able to figure out which one we recommend. So, as somebody coming from the subreddit, Bleachy, go check out the sidebar. There's plenty of links there. Check out the Blue Book. You're definitely old enough to start training reliably and start wrestling. I would say that's my biggest regret from high school, is not wrestling through that. So the time is now. You'll learn a very valuable skill, and then you can just keep lifting too. But did you lift whenever you guys were in high school, anything like that?
Yeah, I did powerlifting in high school.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was a little guy though. I weighed my freshman and sophomore year. I weighed 114.
Wow.
14s.
Okay.
I graduated in 123s in my junior and senior years.
Nice. And the wrestling team didn't try and grab you immediately?
Didn't have it, unfortunately.
Okay.
I would have been all about it.
Okay.
Gotcha. Several times, but we wouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to add something to that kid's question. I train a lot of kids. At least I did until this Corona thing. My entire evenings were filled up with kids, and one kid comes to mind specifically. His name's Isaac, and he's one of the more dedicated kids that I've trained. And he did a gallon of milk a day. He did GoMad, and he started putting on that weight and got a lot stronger. So that's also another option. Is start drinking GoMad. He's 16. He's going to put on a little bit of fat, but he's going to start gaining some good weight. He's pretty tall for 140. And then lift heavy weights, do our program, get the Blue Book and read through that and do the program. And he will start to get stronger.
You think he's probably a lot of these people who are underweight but kind of fat, like I was, generally get a bit sort of scared about, eating lots of calories because they think they're going to get more fat?
Well, yeah, you're going to put on fat, but you're also going to put on muscle. That's the thing. I mean, you can't gain one without gaining the other. That's just the way it is. But he's got to up his calories. I mean, what is he? 5'10", 140?
Yeah, Yep, and 16. Yeah.
That's tall and skinny.
Yeah.
So he needs to not worry about looking a little chunky and just put on that mass and get stronger.
I think as a 16-year-old as well, he's probably, he's got that hormonal advantage of being 16. I mean, he's probably, if he gets his squats up to, sort of, even up to 135 or something like that, he's going to look, pretty good, I think. Okay, next question, Sam Webster. I was wondering about your thoughts on strength training for children. Back in PE, we were encouraged to do push-ups and the like, but we weren't allowed anywhere near a barbell at school. He's got his brother interested in starting strength, and his 12-year-old seems interested when he overhears us talking about barbell training. He's quite chunky, and I think some form of strength training would do wonders for the confidence. We're told kids shouldn't train as it stunts their development. And he's sort of talking more about injury and litigation and things. So his question is, assuming the kid is very mature and would like to take it seriously, what is the youngest age for a person to start supervised strength training?
You train a lot of kids, Alex?
I've worked with a lot of child athletes. I tend to avoid barbells on, definitely a 12-year-old. It's going to depend, on where he's coming along through the process of Tanner stages. So, if he's chunky but also like a relatively mature, tall kid, you can probably get away with him controlling an eccentric motion. But the conventional wisdom for that, is essentially wait until they can train. And before they can train, if you want to introduce them just to general physical activity and just kind of the GPP for physical preparedness, that's great. I would definitely recommend checking out David Epstein's book called Range. It's kind of about the concept of learning skills. So that in itself is its own skill. So essentially your job as a parent who's trying to make your kid into a good athlete and get him into kind of this good structured program is to have him learn a wide variety of skills, because you can't really focus on one. Because if you make him focus on one, he's going to probably do it for 2 or 3 years and get burnt out. So include him into the whole process, take him out in the garage gym with you guys and treat it as play. And focus on things where the eccentric isn't going to be uncontrolled or very negative. So if you have a 13-year-old try and power snatch and that eccentric can be a little bit tricky, probably avoid that. But if you're doing a bench press and you have some pins and racks set up, it's probably not going to be too bad. But things that you can do now between like just push-ups and pull-ups and things that you were talking about are a good way to get him to start enjoying the process of it. Because in reality, everybody should be training for the duration of their lives. So if he's not doing something that's optimal, for the first year, that's fine. Just so long as you get him, or really anybody who's trying to get involved with this, to start to really like, to love, and trust the process of doing it so that it becomes a lifelong habit. I would say would be my goal as a parent, so.
And what age do you recommend them to start steroids?
Normally as soon as possible. If it's illegal already, it can't be doubly illegal. That's what double jeopardy is. So there you go. Go read a book. But
my take on training children, the first thing any parent that comes in and talks to me, the first thing I say to them is, does your kid want to do this? Because do you want to do this? I will train them. And the moment that they show that they don't want to do this anymore, I'm going to stop training them, because it gets to a point to where it's just forcing them to do something. They're going to hate it and never want to do it again. Yep. I have trained kids as young as 8, and they can't train. That's I agree with Alex on that. They can't train that young. It is play. It's developing good habits. And in all these kids, they want to be in there. And in the loading on the bar, and technique is more important than anything. So whenever I'm training them, if something looks bad, turns out we're not putting any more weight on the bar. And maybe I would do 1 pound increments, something very easily manageable. They're going to get strong no matter what, because they're growing. So it's all about if they want to do it, and developing good habits, making sure they can control their bodies, like Alex said. And, but yeah, I view it as if a younger child wants to do it, let them do it. Just watch them carefully. Ideally, they're not going to hurt themselves. They can't produce enough force to be able to hurt themselves. As far as stunning growth, there's been so many studies showing that that's just not the case. It doesn't stunt growth. Weightlifting does not hurt children. So that needs to be completely just thrown out and never talked about again. That's my opinion.
Okay. All right. So the next question is from Raul Wagner. God, this is a long question. Try and shorten this as much as I can. He says he's an attorney at law and an avid hunter and game warden. So I have to hike a lot with my dog, including approximately 250 meters per each of my hiking tours. That doesn't seem like a lot. I wonder if he's talking about altitude. 250-meter walk is the walk around the block. Anyway, but high body weight is counterproductive when hiking, especially when going upwards with gear. For example, a rucksack and a rifle. I'm 46 years old, 178 centimeters, 5'10", body weight of 80 kilograms, 176 pounds, with a very light frame. He's saying he's got small wrists, I think. Body fat 18%. He can deadlift 220 pounds for a set of 5, 202 for 3 sets of 5 for a squat, and bench and press is sort of novice, end of novice kind of. He's saying, I wonder what reasonable goals for my light frame and for my hiking job would be. I would not want to get heavier than 85 kilograms. Do the following goals seem realistic and reasonable given my age, job, and frame? He wants to get to 85 kilograms with a deadlift of 264, a squat of 220, and a bench of 220, all for 3 sets of 5 besides a deadlift. What do you think?
A lot. This is first of all, you sound very cool. So attorney at law and avid hunter and game warden.
Yeah.
So you got a lot going on for you. What I would say is that I wouldn't consider your body weight to be a majorly limiting factor. I am almost your exact dimensions and significantly stronger than you. I'm sure you can do it too. It's really going to depend on the time frame that it's taken you to get this far. So if you're pulling 220, squatting 202, benching 167, and pressing 114, and that's taken, let's say a year or 2 years of diligent training. The goals that you're saying, that kind of range of adding maybe, 20 to 50 pounds on everything, that's fairly reasonable for you, given, another few years of strength training, and you really shouldn't need much more body weight. If you're there in your LP, or, maybe 2 or 3 months in, I wouldn't really set discrete expectations for yourself at a terminal level of strength. Just like we talked about with the kids, it's a process-based thing, and you have to learn to kind of find value in that, and it's going to increase in value as you get better and continue at it. So the goals that you're setting, I think everyone would agree those are pretty much lowballing. I think that you could definitely get your deadlift well past 264 given diligent training without increasing your body weight too much, and then also without really interfering with your hiking job. In terms of adaptation, you're probably pretty adapted and pretty well accustomed to doing the amount of activity that you're doing now. So I wouldn't really, outside of just calorie intake, I wouldn't make too much modifications for it. As for your 18% body fat with the kind of electrical impedance scale, that's going to be a consistency thing. So, if you're noticing your body weight trending up and down, and then you're using the same scale with reliable conditions each time, and then you can kind of see if you're going up or down in body fat percentage. But they tend to be pretty inaccurate, to the best of my knowledge, as for that. So, you could say 18 and you could be walking around in what's more reliably like 23, 24. We honestly have no idea. So, send in some videos, post on the Facebook group, things like that. So, resting.
One thing, did he say if he was training consistently? Because that's a big part of it. If he's
I
able
don't
to
see that in there.
Yeah, if he's able to train 3 times a week and run his LP, those numbers, I agree with your lowballing pretty big. And I don't think he needs to focus on that scale so much as focus on just getting stronger. It's not like he's going to balloon up in 80 pounds and be a person that can't do his job. He will, if he drives up on his deadlift, his press, his bench, his a little bit of much, but get a lot stronger and a whole lot easier.
Gotcha. Okay, my computer's struggling a bit at the moment. Can you guys get to the next question?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yep.
This is a good one for you to practice for your platform exam, or to me for your board exam, Rusty. Hey guys, what are some of the best ways to build strength in the lower back? My low back is always the weakest part of my lifts, and it's holding me back from lifting heavier. Any suggestions? This is not a trick question.
Yeah. Well, again, he leaves out a whole lot of data, right? I have a weak low back. Well, what does that mean? Does it mean that your back's rounding in your deadlift? Does it mean your chest is caving down when you're squatting? There's again a lot to unpack there with very little data. You need to keep deadlifting. That will get your back stronger. I mean, I don't see any other answer to that. He needs to deadlift heavy, and get his body weight up, eat a lot, get your protein in. I mean, you're going to get stronger. Your body will adapt to deadlifting. But he really left out a lot of data. So
yes, yeah, there's really not too much.
I mean,
much to go in there.
Is he deadlifting? He's probably not. If his back is weak, then he's probably not deadlifting. So he needs to just follow the program. Get the blue book, read it, follow the program, and next time let us know exactly what your numbers are doing and what you're doing in the gym.
Yeah, the thing that's giving me a little bit more clues here is the exact wordage is always the weakest part of my lifts, and it's holding me back from lifting heavier. A lot of people are incredibly vigilant of how their lower back is feeling during the lifts, especially during the squat and the deadlift. So they think, it's like, oh God, if I feel any sort of sensation in there that you would akin to doing a bunch of curls and feeling in your bicep, people feel that in their lower back, they think something is wrong. Eventually you have to internalize how painful and difficult really heavy, high intensity lifting is. And for a lot of people, when they start, let's say, they're 4 or 5 weeks in the LP, the deadlift's getting hard, they feel stress in their lower back and they're like, that's my cutoff point. And there's still definite value in continuing to train through that, but you may have to reconcile with the fact that you either have like some multifactorial or non-specific lower back pain that is causing you some issues, and you have to reconcile that through a relatively long process, or just kind of accept, hey, my lower back is going to feel some stress when I'm picking up heavy weights off the floor. So there are definitely a lot of people who are very averse to that. So if that's you, just get over it. But
I think for people, like myself, I'm very wary about my low back just because I've had so many sort of tweaks and injuries and things, and those ones end up, like a tweak in your lower back and a tweak in your bicep. It's kind of different, one has you struggling to get out of bed, and the other one sort of you can deal with it pretty easily. So I think anyone who's had a few of those probably it's probably more psychological, really, just not wanting to do it again and having to deal with that again.
Yeah, Nick, you were here lifting that one time when I tweaked my low back really bad.
Yeah,
and it was. I was warming up. It was only 225 on that bar, and I pulled it. I felt the pinch. I knew I was bad, and then I had a hard time walking for the next 2 weeks.
I remember that.
But I still got in the gym, and I did rack pulls with the bar. I went in there, and I rehabbed it, and it got better. I am prone to lower back tweaks just because of a lot of improper lifting when I was in high school, and all the way up until I started lifting at the athletic club. So yes, again, there's a lot of data left out there. How long has he been lifting? I mean, if he's lifting 2 or 3 months, then he doesn't know what it feels like to lift heavy.
Yep.
You just got to train through it.
I think realizing as well that that rehab protocol, the STAR rehab, it does actually get you back moving fairly quickly as well. I think once you've done that a few times, you tend to not feel as kind of worried about tweaking things, because okay, I can get back to moving in a couple of days if I just follow that rather than following the doctor's advice, which is, don't move, don't lift, rest it up, which just, all that does is just lengthen the amount of time it takes to recover. So that's worked for me, just getting back under the bar as, in a sort of 2 or 3 days after doing it, or even the same day. It's
gonna hurt. That's the thing. You're gonna experience pain. That's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So Pain OK from Reddit asks, assuming the curse gets lifted, I assume he's talking about the coronavirus, on the 1st of May, that will be 5 weeks I've been out of the gym. How do I start back? I've been doing some push-ups and such during the break, but I am definitely detrained.
Yeah.
Do you want to start? Anybody want to start? Mick?
Yeah, coming back off layoffs, and this coronavirus thing, it's a big layoff. There's a lot of people that aren't going to be able to train for 2-3 months. Depending on where you live, if not longer. You're going to have it, depending on where you are in your training, and chances are, no matter where you are in your training, you're going to have to LP again. So I would do a deload. I would pick maybe 20-25%. Take that off the bar and then just ramp up an LP again, 5 pounds every time, get back into 3 times a week. But again, a lot of that depends on where you are in your training. If you're a super advanced lifter, you can get back into it pretty quick. But the doing push-ups and sit-ups and air squats and all that stuff, it's nice to feel like you're getting a workout in, but you're not training at all. And there's very little benefit of doing that if you think it's going to keep your bench press up to 300, because it's not. Alex?
So definitely agreeing with Ressi on most of those things. So, strength is very general, but it's fairly specific once you get into the higher echelons of lifting. So, if you're benching 300, even if you're doing a bunch of weighted push-ups with 150 pounds, it may not transfer exactly how you want it to transfer, but there are a lot of other productive things that you can do. So you can do the conditioning work that everybody tends to avoid whenever they're kind of in a good role with lifting, and you can focus on some hypertrophy work. Unless you are pretty advanced and your weighted chin up is already at 100 some pounds, most people can find something to do to be really productive in that realm. The same thing with the weighted push up and the same thing with the pistol squat. So if you can do a decently weighted 40-50 pound pistol squat, congratulations, you're in a very small percentage of people. Most people can't do that, and it's still very productive to continue working your way towards there. So the criteria that Starting Strength uses to kind of select and filter their exercises, you can just also use that, just pretend that barbells don't exist for a while, and you can really kind of sort out what body weight exercises are going to be best for you. And on top of that, you can just go get a big duffel bag and just fill it with some sandbags, and then there you go. You have a 200, 250 pound implement to throw around. So if you can't get a good workout in with a 200 pound sandbag, you got to get more creative or, do more than 5 reps. But you're just going to have to really alter your expectations. I talked about this a lot in the first Q&A, the second Q&A, because it's going to be a steady stream of questions. Everybody's going to be getting these about how to train, but you got to change your targets. So instead of having a mentality of adding 5 pounds and increasing our general strength in that manner, you're going to go for reps, you're going to go for volume, you're going to go for sets, introduce frequency through the week, and then kind of increase the variations. So even let's say you're doing chin-ups or doing pull-ups and you don't have access to something to weigh it down, you can start working towards doing those with an L-sit, and then doing those with an L-sit and a tempo. And you can really go through everything. The only thing that's really hard to replicate is the deadlift. It's just like hard erector training. In that case, you're just going to have to go find some rocks outside, go find some logs, go find some rocks, and exactly, yeah. Yeah, there's always something productive to do. And it's one of those things where I think this is one of the biggest things for my clients is instilling the love of training, so that, like, hey, if the commercial gym didn't exist anymore, you should still be able to have that be part of your life and still enjoy that. So you don't let that part of your life slip away just because it's not as convenient as using the low bar squat. So
yeah, I think the big thing people are gonna have to understand, if they don't have access to any kind of weights or heavy shit up, is you're gonna be exercising, you're not gonna be training, and nothing will substitute for a barbell squat with heavy weights on your back or a heavy deadlift. Nothing's gonna substitute for that if strength is what you're going after. And I agree with Alex. You be as productive as you can, but you gotta shift those expectations.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to lose strength. You're going to get back in the gym, and you're not going to be as strong. But fortunately, if you have been training for a while, you get back to where you were really fast. So a lot faster than you probably think you are. So yeah.
Cool. All right. This is from, I think it's from Reddit. Czar 2015. Concerning the app, is there a companion app planned for the Apple Watch? Short answer, no. Mainly because we don't get a lot of people requesting it, and I'm not actually sure how that would work. Besides marking off reps and sets, which doesn't really seem like it would be that useful. I think the watch actually does support the rest timer notifications. So if you've got an Apple Watch, you have the rest timer, in between sets, it will actually notify you on your watch, so you kind of know when to get back to it. But yeah, I don't really see the point of having an Apple Watch. If you've got any ideas for how it would work, yeah, just email me via the support links in the app, and we'll. I mean, I'll definitely answer you, but it may be not the answer you want. So,
You're on the watch, maybe.
What's that?
You know, that an RPE where it tells you how hard your set is.
Yeah, it sees your heart rate spike, and then
yeah. That's actually an interesting thing because I mean, the watch does. The newer versions of the watch actually do have some warnings on it about you know, if you fall over or if your heart rate spikes or like I think one of my parents fell over. I think it was actually my dad. Actually, that's right. He was bench pressing, and I was trying to teach him how to get out of failing a rep because he was going to start training on his own. And I just sort of told him to roll out from under the bar, and he somehow managed to fall off the bench completely. And then his watch actually gave him an alert, like, you know, are you okay? We noticed he fell over. It was pretty interesting.
Your watch tells you, hey, you fell over.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Do you have a barbell stuck on your neck at the moment? Do you need us to call?
So what that means is that, you know, the Apple testing studios hired a bunch of stuntmen to fall off of things like old people for a while. They said, hey, spend 3 weeks, pretend you're, you know, an 80-year-old woman and fall down a bunch so we can collect some data on that. So that's cool. Yeah, and I know the Apple Watch too. They kind of check for, it's a little creepy almost, but they do check for certain arrhythmias too. So if you're having some sort of like weird heart arrhythmia, they'll be like, "Hey, you should go to the hospital." But so they're pretty nifty.
I thought the ECG component wasn't actually unlocked yet.
I heard about it. You know, I past reading the relatively 2-page briefish article. I didn't do any investigation, so hands off.
I wonder how well those things deal with gym chalk. I feel like that would become an issue.
All my friends that have it, they use the sleep app that tracks your sleep, and apparently that's very helpful.
Yeah. So there's definitely a lot of good stuff with the watch in terms of tracking. I just don't know if it's that useful for actual training. It'd probably be interesting to check your heart rate through the, you know, because people always say, oh, well, what do I do for my cardio fitness? You know, when I'm just doing starting strength, but obviously sets of heavy squats and deadlifts, obviously, you know, are quite useful for that, but it'd be good for people to be able to see their own data.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. D. Holmes 84. I have had issues with my deadlift. I'm 170.5 inches tall, which I don't think that's correct. But I think that's probably meant to be centimeters. So that's okay. It's 170 centimeters tall, and the length across my back fingertip to fingertips is 168 centimeters. Are my short arms a disadvantage when setting up for a deadlift? Is there anything I can try to adjust?
I don't see how you can make your arms longer. There is, you know, you're probably a good bench presser. You're probably a good presser. I mean, that's just the nature of your body type. I mean, Alex, do you know how to make people's arms longer?
No, I think they actually do certain surgeries like this. So they are the ones where they break your shins and then they expand them. So if that's an option for you, see if a 2-year training setback from having your arms broken in multiple spots is worth it.
So you can get an inch and a half maybe.
Yes. Yeah, so I mean, I've noticed for a lot of people, especially whenever they start to take a mixed grip, they'll change their carrying angle. So instead of having perfectly, you know, vertical arms or as long as they can, they'll take it to the outside. And the next thing is that I've noticed with a lot of novice lifters, they'll expect to have a firm, closed grip on the bar the entire time, whereas in reality, a lot of times it's here, kind of in my open fingertips. When I'm deadlifting personally, a lot of times my thumb is almost off the bar, it's just kind of in a monkey grip position. So make sure you're not choking up on it too much because it'll make your arms feel shorter than they are. And the same thing with a shrug. There's a lot of people who think kind of in the deadlift they'll have to be like this the whole time. They'll try and get set up with a nice shrug, and they'll kind of make themselves have these T-Rex arms when they don't really need to. So, you know, let your scapula depress all the way. Think about having nice long arms and make sure you're carrying them as straight as you can. So with that, you'll probably have to take a more narrow stance than you may already be, and then, you know, really move those hands in. But you're just going to have a high hipped position. I'm sorry, there's not too much you can do, you know, outside of that.
Going back to grip, when I'm training people, I normally start them off with hook grip. They at first, but then eventually they get used to it and it doesn't phase them anymore. But I mean, honestly though, don't let short arms be an excuse for not getting a big deadlift, because it's not. You got to train hard. If you keep putting weight on that bar, you will get stronger regardless of how short your arms are, unless you have T-Rex arms.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's like, your thumb isn't even, if it's near your belly button, then you have a special circumstances. But if we're using the centimeter comparison, your wingspan, it's basically fine. But I would say make sure those adjustments are there. If you're powerlifting specifically, and you're attempting to like squeeze every ounce of the deadlift that you can, there's some intentional modifications to be made. But if you're just generally strength training, you're comparing your progress based off of your own past, not really so much anybody else's. So if you increase your short arm deadlift from 135, to the mid threes, that's a pretty good move. So it's just a game of expectations for you. So
no one's recommended sumo deadlifts yet.
No. Why did you even say that word?
Yeah. I tried to sneak around it with it. If you're powerlifting, there's certain things that you can attempt to do, but
if you're powerlifting, train conventional, and then when you compete, do sumo.
Yeah, have a sumo block for a week before you start, and you can go for there. So,
but then again, I've seen some very, very strong powerlifters pull conventional, and they pull more conventional than people are sumoing. So,
why is that?
They're just really fucking strong.
Okay. So the next question is from Nick G. Can Mick do video tutorials and walk through how to use Strength Club to highlight its features? This sounds like a total setup question that I wrote for myself, and it's not. This is actually a legitimate email I got last night. Yes. The answer is I haven't wanted to do it because we need to fix the fundamental issues of why people are struggling to create a workout. And we know we do have issues with the app. Some people do find it a little bit unintuitive to use just because there's so much customization potential. I mean, the app was designed to allow somebody to create a cycle of training in a few minutes. So say if they wanted to create a cycle of, say, Texas, a 4-day Texas method, they would be able to do that. So I think it's really, the short answer is I am going to do it, but we also do need to, we are focusing on fixing some of those issues and try and make it easier for people to get started with the app. Alex, did you want to add anything to that?
One of my personal goals with the project so far has been trying to make it not be necessarily guided in the way where you're removing a lot of choice from the user, from the person who's creating the program, but to make it as simple as possible, from the point of how many days a week am I training? What lifts do I want to train? How do I want to train those lifts? Put it on a calendar and get going. So once that kind of flow and that control is down a little bit better for the user, I definitely think it's going to be something we'll be doing. So
yeah. So yeah, we're going to do both. I am going to do some video tutorials for the current app, and yeah, we are going to fix that flow issue as well, and hopefully, I think
my little video thing's up in the top corner.
Yeah, I still have them.
Oh, there you go. Just somehow.
As long as Rusty has me, that's fine.
No, it's all right. I've added
you see me
now.
enough, so
it's just to remove you. It's put you on the other side of the screen now. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, if anyone has any queries about Strength Club or they're struggling to use it, just feel free to email me, and I'm happy to do kind of a Zoom or a Skype with you and run you through the things that you're struggling with. And I'll also will make some videos about how to set up a program. So hopefully that's answered your question, Nick. We have a comment question from Grow Eco. Thanks for the great tips. I'm just wondering how Starting Strength team is viewing this Corona-19 and preparing for more lockdown situations that prevents people going to the gyms. Do you guys have any plans to give any more tips for home training? I'd be happy to follow.
Chase, he's one of the coaches, is starting strength coach. Everybody knows Chase Lindley. He's working over at Starting Strength Houston right now, or of course, all the gyms are shut down. Well, he came back to Wichita to avoid all the craziness. And from what I've seen, a lot of the affiliates, a lot of our franchise gyms, they're getting real creative with how to train their clients. Even if it's just bro stuff, they're doing a lot of online training. I know Grant over at the Strength Co. He actually broke down his gym and started taking the racks to his clients and training out of their garages. I mean, the ingenuity of starting strength coaches is very vast in the way that they're able to train their clients amidst all of this craziness. Of course, Rip, being Rip, we never really closed. We put it out there that we're open right now, but we're using common sense, measures. Granted, a lot of people want to stay away from the gyms right now. That's fine. But from what I've seen, there's the starting strength coaches are doing a lot to still train their clients. And, we talked about home workouts. They find things to do to program their clients. So, yeah, even with the gyms being closed, they're still training.
What do you think about kettlebells or bands or things like that?
I mean, if that's what you have access to, that's what you have access to, and you got to make it work. Again, it's not the same thing as having a barbell with 335 on your back, but it's something. And if you're cooped up in your house for 3-4 months, you got to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Starting Strength's going to be putting out a at-home band workout at any point. What's that?
Prison workouts.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna start doing band tutorials.
Yeah.
I'll bring it up to Nick, see if we can throw that on the YouTube.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I know the answer to that already, but anyway, let's see how it goes. Okay. Next question from Patrick. What programming changes do you make for someone who is losing weight? Second. Okay, let's answer that one first. Oh, actually, no. Let's not go through what he says. The second question somewhat pertains to me. I'm thinking of losing 3 or 4 pounds just for a bit, then we'll focus on slowly putting weight back on.
Okay. So, that was broken up into 2 parts. So the first part of that question, I entered into the sheet, but he was saying like, what do our workouts look like now? Kind of like coaches' workouts. And then I think he's talking, he's planning on losing some weight a few months from now and then going for there. If you're losing 3 or 4 pounds, that would be kind of in the realm of the mini cut, not like a prolonged or extended cut. So if you're hanging around in bodybuilding circles, like a slow natural cut for 20 pounds of fat, that should take you probably between, like 14 to 16 weeks. But like a mini cut of 3 or 4 pounds, just kind of to reset things. If you're feeling a little bit, more fat than your comfort levels allow, you really don't have to make too many changes to your programming. The biggest thing to add would be like a few extra walks a day just to kind of increase your general activity levels. Your intensity in the gym is going to suffer a little bit depending on how you kind of strategically plan your meals and plan your caffeine timing and everything like that. So, even if you're at a reduced carbohydrate intake and you can set it up so that, you have 150 grams of carbs and some caffeine and an hour and a half later and you're in the gym, and you're feeling good, and then you only have, let's say, another, 50 or 100 grams of carbs later through the evening, and that's when you feel, your tiredness and your fatigue. So kind of you have to strategize a lot about how you're going to reconcile the fact that you are at a caloric deficit, you are losing mass, so you're going to be losing lean mass as well as fat. You're going to skew it as much as you can to fat. But in terms of programming, the one thing I always like to say is like there's always someone who is lighter than you and stronger than you. So there's no excuse for you to not be able to, continue having the expectations of progress when you're losing weight. So if you decided to make a very unreasonable deficit, so if you're at a 1,500 calorie deficit a day, different conversation. But hopefully no one is doing anything as silly as that. But as for the kind of slowly putting weight back on, losing 3 or 4 pounds thing, honestly, it just sounds like for most people, they can end up just like eating at maintenance and making that shift around anyways. So
I feel like I could lose 3 or 4 pounds overnight.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like he left out some valuable information in that question. How much does he weigh now? How long has he been training? All of those questions need to be asked before you can truly answer that question, in my opinion. But I mean, what's his goal? That's the big thing. What's his goal right now? I mean, is he trying to get a 6-pack? If you're trying to get a 6-pack, yeah, your training's going to suffer for it. That's my opinion on it. I don't know. Do you feel the same way, Alex?
Normally, if I'm ever carrying around a 6-pack, my training suffers. Yeah. But it's that expectation game again. So instead of saying like, hey, my lifetime best PRs for your deadlift or your squat or what have you, you're changing your mindset, saying how many sets am I getting in per workout, or how many volume sets am I getting in through the week. You can play around with those things and just say like, hey, I'm still making forward progress somewhere. Just so long as you're still training. I know a lot of people they'll think that abs are only made in the kitchen, and they'll completely avoid doing hard work in the gym, but they really go hand in hand. So
yeah, I noticed you gave me some feedback. I mean, Alex is actually my coach as well, and there was a comment that you left in one of my workouts that was something along the lines of, you've still got a bit of fluff around the midsection or something like that. I think it was probably after a set of squats where it might, that kind of, you put your belt on and the
hangover, yeah.
There's just, a bit of fat and skin and whatever hanging over the end of it. It was just, I laughed when I read that comment.
Yeah, because like the cupcake or the muffin top will start. Yeah, and I think a lot of people will run to adding weight as a solution for either are working harder or doing more work at an appropriate interval. So for a lot of people, there's guys who are at 25, 30% body fat who are like, oh man, I need to gain weight to put 5 pounds in my press, whereas in reality, hey, you need to be pressing harder or pressing more. Yeah. So for a lot of those times, you're just going to have an honest conversation with yourself and see if you're trying to find an excuse to eat another 1,000 calories a day. So as much as we would all like to. But
I've noticed, since I've started with training with you, Alex, I've noticed that, I haven't really changed my eating habits too much. I'm probably eating more protein, but not a whole lot more calories. But even that, I've noticed my body composition changing while, the weight on the bar is actually increasing. So, yeah, I think, it's probably more to do with the volume of lifting as well, I guess.
Yeah, hammer the work home. And another thing, it's like one thing that a lot of people don't realize, it's like, so appetite-wise, hormonally, your protein-seeking behaviors are going to change just kind of from what your expenditure is. But on top of that, it's very satisfying food. So high protein meals tend to be satisfying. So, if you're working hard in the gym 3 or 4 days a week, you're likely going to gravitate towards those choices anyways. So I don't know many people who get like a hard like rack pull or squat session done. They're like, man, I want to have some ice cream now. Normally it's something like something very substantial. So
I don't know. I always feel like I want carbs after I've done a workout. Like the thought of having a massive steak after I've just done, a lot of sets of squats or whatever. It just I can't fathom it.
Gotcha. Maybe I've conditioned myself just to seek that out specifically. Yeah.
What do you normally eat after a workout?
Normally, I feel like if I have carbs, I'll just fall asleep in 2 seconds. Yep. So I avoid carbs right after my workout, so I don't, pass out on the drive home. But I always try to get some protein sources in right after the workout. But it could be a leftover from hearing the bro talk of the anabolic window so many times. Even though it's not real, we've heard it too many times to.
I've been eating some of the Staneffordine Monster Mash. And it's got meat, it's got carbs, and normally after I get done working out, I'm normally just hungry, right? Just because I'm already working. So I've been pretty steady on eating that right after a workout. Normally I eat that like 2 times a day, so I'm getting a lot of.
What's the Monster Mash? What is that?
It's basically ground beef, rice, potatoes, and you can put whatever else you want into it. But that's generally what I make. It's super easy. You can make a crap load of it at once and. Just snack on it all day.
I assume you're cooking it for some amount of time, right? It's not just raw ground beef, is it?
It's cooked.
Okay, right.
Just blend it up.
Yeah. Just put it in, choke it down.
Was that on the same podcast where he was talking about he was blending up chicken breasts and drinking it or something?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Had a surgery or something or other, and was shooting a squirt bottle with ground up chicken down his throat to fight surgery.
Yeah, that's That's next level.
You gotta love the bodybuilders, man. You gotta love the bodybuilders.
Dedicated. He is the largest man I've ever met in my life. He is massive.
Were you there for the seminar that he was at?
No, that was out of town. I wasn't at that one.
Okay.
No, I was there whenever he came to do our podcast.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and he's the biggest man I've ever met, which is funny because on his Instagram he's standing next to Half Thor, and Half makes him look like a child, and it boggles my mind how big that man is.
Do you think those guys start with the goal of I don't want to be able to walk through a hallway unless I'm walking sideways? Is that how it all starts?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean he's a wide man.
I just remember. I think I remember whenever I started lifting, there was a video of him like doing like a farmer's carry medley with like 600 some pounds. It was like world's strongest bodybuilder, and you just kind of see his back. And I'm like, I really need to get in the gym, man. This is this is crazy.
You need to be squirting chicken breast slime down your throat while you're doing it as well.
Yeah, he has a lot of gym, like not to do somebody's bit again, but always of course look up Stan Efferding's content. It's really great, especially his his interviews about like some of the bodybuilding stories. But there was this one that he was talking about where he was sleeping 10, 11 hours a night. He was training 2 or 3 times a day, and he would have to like wake up to pee. So he would put a garbage can next to his bed, wake up, pee in the garbage can, go back to bed immediately. But yeah, those guys they're
a different breed.
Crazy.
You guys don't use a pee bottle?
I actually just cath up every night. Just full catheter before I go to bed. So yeah.
All right. Last question from Greg. What are good books to supplement starting strength?
What is it? Bigger, faster, stronger. I think is. Oh shoot! I was just looking at it not too long ago. We had him on the podcast not too long ago. I'm sorry. Hang on.
What was the anatomy book that you recommended me, Rusty, a while back?
Netter's
Anatomy. Yeah.
Book for anatomy. Yeah. As far as supplements, I mean the practical programming. Other than the starting strength blue book, that's always a solid read. It's dense, and the thing about the blue book and the gray book is every time you read them, you get something new out of it. Rip put a lot of energy into writing those books, and you can tell. But yeah, what about you, Alex?
I would say find some things, 30-page ebook on some guy who has the world's best programming secret, and consolidate the two. So just find drastically different sources of information so you can kind of train that eye of what is bullshit, what is not. And then definitely through practical programming. And once you're done with practical programming, start reading other programming models. So like the Zatsiorsky stuff, the Bompa stuff, all of the periodization stuff, and see like what the hell these people are talking about. Why does that exist? Reconcile that with practical programming, and then kind of realize like why certain arguments are just correct. Just that you can kind of have a more holistic understanding. But if you're interested in coaching, Netter's, I got a Netter's clinical that I really like because it has like helpful tidbits all over the place. And then like a mechanics textbook, physics textbook, things like that. So.
I'm sorry. The book I was thinking of is Bigger, Leaner, Stronger by Michael Matthews. We had him on the podcast not too long ago. Great guy. Legion Athletics is his supplement company, and you can buy his book through there. It's geared more towards looking good, but he also believes in the big lifts to develop that strength base and then get past it. But that's an excellent book too.
Is it sort of like a how-to train? Is it like a programming model book or manual, or is it just a general training manual?
Programming in there, and again, it has a lot of bodybuilding, like how to look good, But I mean, he definitely believes in you got to squat, you got to bench press, got to deadlift, you got to do all that stuff.
Yeah,
it's a very good book.
Cool. Well, I think that's the end of. That was the last questions. You guys got anything else you wanted to have a chat about?
No.
All good.
No.
Well, thanks, guys.
How's Australia surviving the death going around?
Well, we're pretty lucky. We're a giant island and very sparsely populated, so we pretty much just shut the borders. I don't really follow the numbers that much. I think this whole thing's been a bit. I think the measures taken were a little bit drastic, given that we didn't really have a lot of data. But yeah, we've shut down like everywhere else. I mean, I live in the middle of a city, and I'm looking outside now. It's Saturday, and there's just looks like North Korea out there. There's just no cars on the road.
Spooky. Yeah.
People are getting fines for. I think there was one guy down south who was washing his car at a sort of at a public car wash at 3:00 in the morning. No one around. Cops
really?
gave him $1,000 fine.
Oh my God.
So it's just that's.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Able to train with the bar and squat and everything.
Yeah, well, I was lucky. I went. I was at a powerlifting gym about 5 minutes away, and before the whole thing, everything shut down. I said to the owner, "What are the chances you guys are going to shut down next week?" And he said, "Definitely, 100%. We're not shutting down." And I was like, "I don't know about that." I went and bought a rack. I went and bought a rack and some weights the day before everything shut down, and got it delivered. And so I set it up on my balcony of my apartment. So I was kind of lucky with that, and then it turns out the gym did end up shutting down anyway. So so much of that. So I've been fine, but I know there's a lot of other people who just don't have access to anything at the moment. So
Alex, you training good?
So what I've been doing is I've been kind of legally organizing like groups of younger guys who are kind of in our low risk group to go work out at various garage gyms through the area, so like 3 or 4 guys at a time, go to somebody's house to do a squat rack, things like that. So I've been able to get, near a barbell probably once, maybe twice a week. So like last night, for example, I did a bunch of arm work with like some resistance bands that I have. And then I did, 5 pull-ups every minute for about an hour and 45 minutes. So, so it's like things like that, so there are ways to train, but now my forearms are just too sore. So you got to getting creative. Back one thing, the podcast that you guys did, I want to say it was the War on Death, was it called? The COVID one? Yeah, that was amazing. That was great. I sent that to everybody and everybody's mom, but
excellent.
Yeah, so that was great. So Mick, if you haven't listened to that one, definitely check that one out.
Yeah,
so that was
one with Steph and Rip and the and the doc. Yeah, no, I did listen to that one.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Doing a follow-up pretty soon, if not next week. So be on the lookout for that, because again, with numbers going down and this, draconian kind of laws going around right now, especially in the States, it's I don't know, not everywhere is New York. New York's suffering right now, but that's because they're just stacked on top of each other.
Right.
My town in Wichita Falls, I think we've had 54, maybe 58 cases that were confirmed, and 0 deaths. And our hospital right now is empty. Like, they are telling nurses to go home. They're telling PAs to go home. One of my friends who works in the ER, he saw maybe 4 people in one night. And that's, we have 100,000 people here. So, them treating us like New York just isn't going to work very much.
It's crazy. Yeah.
So the advice is go outside and start coughing over everyone. Is that?
Yes.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for that. That was that was fun. And I guess we'll end it here.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks,
Gotcha.
guys. See you later.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.